Our next session and the last one for today is future MSP. So looking at what are the future priorities and the gaps that could be identified in the Baltic Sea in terms of the advancements of MSP. We have a panel of four people. So first one is Elina Veidemane from VASAB Secretariat, then Nico Buytendijk from the Netherlands Enterprise Agency, Triin Lepland from Estonian Ministry of the Finance, and Jacek Zaucha from Maritime Institute of Maritime University in Gdynia. Before we start the discussion, we would like to hear a little presentation from Elina regarding the LTP update, so the long-term perspective in the Baltic update. Elina, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ivana, for a kind introduction. I hope my presentation, you can see that. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, my intention here is to tell you more about the recent work within VASAB towards VASAB Vision 2040. But before I continue, I think I should also address this recent and unfortunate events taking place right now in Ukraine that has totally changed the situation in Europe and particularly also in the Baltic Sea region. And as you may know, that many organizations and also companies around the globe and also around the Baltic Sea have suspended Russia from cooperation. And this is also the case of VASAB. Last week, the statement was issued to suspend Russia and also Belarus from VASAB and its related activities. However, given these sad circumstances, we see that spatial planning and visions actually are quite crucially needed, especially today, and it can also bring some hopes for the future and set path forward. And in case of VASAB work, it has always been with a long-term perspective in mind, and we hope that in our deepest prayers in our hearts that we will live in better circumstances in some future. But about VASAB. So VASAB also can be sort of considered as a unique cooperation at macro level on spatial planning that has been one of the pioneers in developing the spatial visions. First vision was already elaborated in mid-90s, and this first vision identified the overall spatial structure of the region. And this vision was revised in 2009. This document, also known as a VASAB long-term perspective, that present the view of territorial cohesion of the region by 2030. And now the VASAB vision is being adopted for the third time. And we believe that visions are powerful tools. They describe or identifies the desirable future that is based on a core set of ideas, solutions, values, and principles that all together are shared by stakeholders, and that these stakeholders also wish to make these desirable changes for the region, also for the next generation. And the update of VASAB long-term perspective and preparation for the VASAB Vision 2040 was initiated due to a rise of new territorial challenges and trends that influence the development in the Baltic Sea region. And a year ago, when we started this work, we faced the pandemic reality. Also, demographic changes are visible in the region. Impacts of climate change that have been mentioned today many times, digitalization, and of course, obviously, vulnerability of the Baltic Sea. And I think in the light of the recent unfortunate developments, we also can add the security and resilience of the region as well. Update of VASAB long-term perspective and preparation of Vision 2040 is based on work and research done so far. This work focuses on four main spatial elements or metaphors that were identified by first VASAB vision, namely pairs, strings, patches, and system, and they all together are now analyzed in the context of future developments by 2040 and beyond. The update process is being organized in a co-creative, collaborative way, during which the key elements of the vision, also the main statements, have been formulated together with VASAB committee and also communicated to other relevant stakeholders. As also Magda mentioned, there has been also the workshop within the Capacity for MSP project. And VASAB Vision 2040 is still a draft, but the main aim of this vision is to achieve the territorial cohesion in 2040. And this vision also seeks answers how this desired region of the Baltic Sea, how it would look like in 2040 and beyond, and also how spatial planning and maritime spatial planning would be involved by then. And here, of course, this healthy Baltic Sea is the core asset of the region, as it's literally placed in the center of the region, and we all are binded to that. And the vision throughout is characterized by a clear shift to sustainability and also wise use of technology. And here, such principles as cooperation, the solidarity, and integration are named as the must principles to make the vision come true. And as mentioned previously, the spatial vision for 2040 is structured along 4 metaphors. Each one of them is describing the spatial element of the vision. The first one, the pairs represent the different sizes of urban settlements, and that also they can provide a high quality of life, and they are networked and they are building on comparative advantages, but in the meantime also on the complementarities between each other. The other metaphor, the strings, represent the physical and virtual connections between goods or for goods, people, and knowledge. And here, this sustainability shift prevails towards green, sustainable, and affordable connections. Here also is included energy strings that reflect a carbon neutral energy production, which is decentralized, which is secure, and also well connected throughout the Baltic Sea region. And the patches represent a sustainable and healthy environment and ecosystems that are closely linked with also sustainable economic and social activities, both on the land and the sea. And here, as examples, are sustainable agriculture, food and energy production, and also protection of nature and cultural heritage and assets. Last but not least, metaphor, the system represents spatial planning at the sea and on the land. And this is characterized by strong cooperation, also smooth communication across different levels of governance, so-called multi-level governance, the spatial planning systems, across sector policies, and also across various kinds of borders, either they're administrative, physical, virtual, or any other. And these systems also are characterized with high citizen involvement, engagement, and we also heard that the justice to be assured, and also territorial monitoring assessments and also digital solutions play a key role here in order to ensure the information exchange and also building the further evidence development for future planning. This was very quick insight of VASAB vision, draft VASAB vision, but we know that in order to make visions come true and not a daydream, but we need committed players, and we also need a clear and concrete actions or even project ideas, and also the time frame to help to implement our VASAB vision in a long run. And so in this regard, yesterday, VASAB launched the stakeholder consultations, and in this is forwarding this draft VASAB vision for stakeholder feedback. Feedbacks are welcome, unexpected by the middle of summer, so it's still there's plenty of time. And these feedbacks, we are really looking forward to them, and because they will be crucial to refine the document, but also to together identify those activities, those actions, and even project ideas that could help in implementation of VASAB vision. As you can see, several activities have been already envisaged. There is also the survey that you can look up and fill in, and we are looking forward to active participation and contributions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Elina. It is very good to know that there is quite some time actually to comment on the vision. And as you said yourself, vision itself is nice, but then also the roadmap and activities. So highlighting those activities again together with stakeholders and those who will be commenting upon it is very important. And also receiving some endorsements, because it can be implemented only if it's really taken up and accepted by all. Okay, very good. Next, I would like to invite Nico Buytendijk from the Netherlands Enterprise Agency to present us about the eMSP project. That's a new project that recently started, and it will be kind of, to a certain extent, taking forward some of the activities in the Capacity4MSP project, but also linking us better with the North Sea. Nico, the floor is yours.
Unmute. That's a classical mistake. Thank you very much, Ivana, and thank you all for having me here. And I must say, I'm still getting used to the time difference, because I thought I still had an hour, but I didn't. So I was luckily already connected to this event, of which I'm really glad I can tell you something about eMSP and BSR. Essentially, it's about working together, as is Capacity4MSP. So in that respect, there will be a lot of similarities, I guess. This is, of course, as I think some of you will know, the physical boundary between the Baltic Sea and the North Sea. You can find this in the north of Denmark. I haven't been here, but I really am anxious to see this, because it really looks very special to me, at least. And this is more or less what eMSP is about. There are differences, of course, between the Baltic Sea and the North Sea in this case, but at the same time, there are a lot of similarities, and that's what we are looking at, both, of course. The similarities, but also the differences between these. It's about maritime spatial planning in the North and the Baltic Sea. So I'm really glad to have this cooperation together with both sea basins. So let me start with that. As you all know, of course, all EU all EU countries that have a sea basin on their coast, they have been asked to have an MSP, a maritime spatial planning. So all member states have an MSP. So this is the perfect time to start comparing them, start comparing the processes, of course, but also the content, or what's in the MSP, how is it set up, and how can we learn from each other. So I think that's one of the things we are going to do, which is really interesting, I think, to see in this case also the differences and the similarities between both seas. And as you all know, especially seas in Europe, they are quite busy. A colleague of mine said that I wasn't allowed to say it's full, but it's definitely really busy, and you can see, of course, with what kinds of activities it is filled, so to speak. It is shipping lanes, for example, sand extraction areas. And for the Netherlands, in this example, in the left bottom corner, it's really important to protect our shores, of course. And as Magda said, climate change will have an effect, and definitely also on MSP in this respect. Nature areas, it's really necessary to protect nature. It's about shipping lanes, I said it before, I believe, but also wind farms, and that's the real, that's a really big player, not only in the Netherlands, but also in the other countries. There will be a huge amount of wind farms in the seas. So that's an activity that will put a lot of pressure on the use of space in MSP in all countries. And at the same time, there is multi-use. And I've seen the poll already. I didn't participate. I just was waiting to see what the outcomes would be. But I could see wind energy was of renewable energies is a really important player. But the same goes for multi-use. And you can see some examples over here. It's about a wave generator of electricity use generation using a wave generator, or wave energy. And you can see it in the bottom, but also a shellfish farming, for example, offshore. That's one of the new activities, and seaweed farming, of course. So there's a lot going on, and there will be a lot more going on. And this also stresses the importance of cross-boundary cooperation, because effects, for example, of a wind farm in our EEZ will have an effect on the Belgian wind farms, or the wind farms of Germany, for example. What is really important in MSP for the future, and it has been said already, is climate change. That will be a major factor, because we all know temperatures are rising. We don't know how far and how much, but we have an idea. It will have an effect on sea level rise, for example, but also on, for example, the acidity changes of the oceans. But also maybe some less expected effects on MSP in this case, which is, for example, shipping lanes to the north through the Arctic Ocean. So that will also have an effect on MSP. So one of the major things we have to incorporate in MSP is climate change and the effects of climate change, and what it means for MSP. And of course, and that's also, I think, a really important factor, is the effects on the ecology. It's about the ecological boundaries of our oceans and seas. What is the capacity to you call it, carry the impact of humans? It's not only nutrients, but for example also sounds, stuff like that. But what is the effect of climate change and the migration of species to the north? And do we need to help them migrate to the north? Are there corridors they can use, for example? So I think that's really important. And we are looking at the Green Deal, the European Green Deal, on how the European Green Deal can help MSP cope with all these changes, especially climate change. This is an abstract of the project, so to speak. So I already told you about the climate change in the EU Green Deal. We had an inception phase in the first 6 months of the project. We concluded the inception phase, which was run by the Polish partners, so Magda and Jacek. And it was concluded with an external kickoff event. There were about, I believe, more than 200 individual participants. So we were really glad with that outcome. And from now on, it's important to start working on the learning strands. We've got 5 learning strands. It's ocean governance, ecosystem-based approach, sustainable blue economy, monitoring and evaluation, and data information and communication technology. So on these 5 learning strands, we are going to go into depth on what are the developments in these learning strands, and what the information is that we have to use from these 5 learning strands to make MSP future-proof. And we are going to use communities of practice. And one of my colleagues said that he forbid me to use this diagram. So I think this is the last time I will use it, because he didn't like it. But the thing is, we have a community of practice in the Netherlands, and we use it to get all the information, all the knowledge, and all the people that are necessary to think and help us work on, in this case, the sustainable blue economy. Our idea, together with all the partners, was, can we organize something like a community of practice around MSP for the Northern Baltic Sea? So that's the project. And let people join this process to help us make MSP future-proof. So it's about governments, it's about research institutes, it's about businesses, companies, and it's about NGOs. So we are going to organize for each learning strand a small community of practice, And all the information that's collected in those small community practices where everyone can participate, so to speak, we're going to bundle this knowledge and bring it back in the larger community of practice. And we hope we can generate a cooperation on the learning strands, but also between the learning strands in this way. Last but not least, the whole project is takes 30 months. So the first 6 months have already been done, so to speak. The countries that are in the consortium are the Netherlands, France, Belgium, Denmark, Germany, Poland, Latvia, Finland, and Sweden. We are talking to Norway and see whether or not they will participate in the learning strands or in the whole project. So we're still expanding the project for as far as possible. And you all know, of course, VASAB and HELCOM, that those are also in this project. So I'm really glad to have this project and to have this cooperation with the Baltic states and the Baltic Sea. And I think this is going to be really interesting also concerning the policy notes that will come out of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nico. Very good overview of the project. Please stay with us on the virtual floor. I would also like to invite Elina, who was presenting earlier, as well as Triin Lepland from the Estonian Ministry of the Finance, as well as Jacek Zaucha from Marine Institute of Maritime University in Gdynia. Thanks very much to all 4 of you for being with us. Excellent. I think we're just still waiting for Jacek to join. There he is. Excellent. Okay, so I would like to start off, Nico, you presented now regarding the eMSP project, and you have mentioned this community of practice. Sorry. You have experience with it in the Netherlands, and I understand that it worked well, and you kind of already started scaling it up to the North Sea, and now we see that this is something that will be taken up further. Why, from your perspective, in your experience, why is this such a good approach? What actually worked, and why do you think it can also be scaled up to kind of a transnational context? Maybe a bit more. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ivana. We started this network with the aim, and I said it before, more or less, with the aim of bringing together all knowledge and skills that's required to develop the sustainable blue economy. So that was the aim in the Netherlands, and this community of practice, North Sea, how we call it, is really broad and diverse. So it includes, as I said before, governments, research institutes, NGOs, but also the business community. And we believe it's important to involve all these parties because they eventually all play a role in the development of the sustainable blue economy. And what I also think in this respect is that policy and policy development are not separate from practice. They need each other. So that's the beginning, so to speak. But this also implies for MSP. Developments in practice at sea will influence policy and vice versa. So that's why we wanted to build a community with all parties involved, and that's not only policy, but it's definitely also the business, for example. And we also thought, okay, we need all the knowledge we can get. And if we look at the Netherlands, we are way too small to have all the knowledge that is required. The same goes more or less also for the North Sea. So we wanted to make it as broad as possible. So that's why we were really glad to have the Baltic Sea in consortium too. So Baltic states. And let me see. Yeah, and what I think is important is that you set up a framework in which people have some freedom to work on a certain aspect. So it's still the government, in this case the MSP authority, that defines the framework where people can work within the boundaries of the framework. So we still determine what the goal will be, but all parties can bring in their own knowledge and help us make better policy in this case.
Thank you, Nico. I would like to know also from planners' perspective, how would planners like to be actually involved in this, or what would be the expectations from kind of the planners' perspective? But here I would like to hear from Triin or maybe also Jacek. So if you were to be involved in one such community of practice that is actually transnational, how would you like to be involved, and what would be kind of your expectations?
Yes, thank you, Ivana, and good morning to everyone from my side also. Well, to my mind, the community of practice idea is a bit similar that we had in Baltic Sea, what we did with the Planners Forum or Planning Forum initiative. And actually, what Elina already introduced with our Planning Forum, then I think from the planners' perspective, the most crucial is actually very concrete discussions about problematic themes. If practitioners can give the input, what are the themes right now that is essential to discuss internationally, then I think we can actually get good results, and we can learn from each other. And when we are thinking about MSP implementation, then the licensing processes that follow the MSP is actually somewhat similar in different countries, and the issues or the problems or the different themes that come up with licensing processes, I think they need to be discussed. And maybe also an idea from that perspective, that personally I feel that I am in part of MSP community, and we know each other personally very, very well, and we need to preserve this feeling, because this actually enhances the discussions if we know each other personally and if we have close connections.
That's a very good point, and we're indeed moving more now towards the implementation, monitoring, and evaluation, and those topics are actually very much of interest now. Jacek, would you have anything to add on this?
I must say, when I listened to Triin, which I share all what she said, so I remember our discussion with Charles Ehler when he said that MSP is not a tool, it's a process. So for a process, we need this, community feeling, being together. And what is important for me in the eMSP project, that now this Baltic cooperation, which is, I think, flourishing, which is very great because we know each other, even despite COVID. So now it is a chance to extend it toward North Sea and to understand each other. And this is a big advantage of this project, that we can learn. We can understand other countries with a little bit different problems, approaches, and experience.
That's a very good point. I have to say that what was gathering us together and kind of motivated in the past was this urgency to satisfy the requirements of the directive and really develop this MSP. But now when MSP is in place, yes, we're talking about implementation and we're talking about monitoring and evaluation and so on, but can we actually keep the momentum, and will we still have planners and everyone motivated at the same level as we had it before? I'm putting one question to Slido. I would like to hear from everyone who is attending now. I would like to know about your motivation regarding your capacities going on in terms of the MSP, because I know in the past you were very motivated, plans needed to be developed, but now when plans are in place, does it hold true that MSP is the process and we will be able to kind of continue with the momentum? But this is also the question to all the attendees of the panel. So how do we actually keep this momentum? I heard definitely the words, so implementation is important, the permitting. We hear now this new communication from the Commission regarding the offshore wind and really the need to improve the permitting processes. So any take from your side on that? So how to keep the momentum and how to keep the planners motivated to continue coming to our communities of practice or planners forum or you name it. Okay, but the answers are good, very motivated.
Yeah, but the question is whether our decision makers have the same level of motivation as planners. That's the key challenge. Because decision makers are thinking in terms of resources, payments, funding, and things like that.
That's a valid point as well, definitely. All right, but this is very positive. So we have very motivated, someone motivated. That's excellent. That's very good. Okay. Other topic that I would like us to touch upon, and we have heard a lot about it, also from Angela's presentation earlier, and the overall review that she has conducted of all the MSPs in terms of how these are now to be implemented, evaluated, monitored, and so on. And we have heard this word adaptation. So MSP needs to be adaptable. Maybe Elina, from your side, you have also touched upon the topic that the priorities can shift easily, and we have now the draft LTP. We see that the priorities are shifting quickly, also in terms of the national marine spatial plans and so on. So how important is it to have it adaptable, and how can this actually operationalize in terms of the LTP, but also the plans, national plans themselves?
Yeah, you're absolutely right about this adaptivity. It's very important. And also I should mention that the need for adaptivity, I think it's also one of the main principles that have been adopted by HELCOM and VASAB, the MSP principles. And one of them is saying that the planning is continuous process, should be adapted to new circumstances, new challenges, new knowledge. And yeah, we see that like one decision or one solution that was, considered as the best one and yesterday, tomorrow probably should be and will be changed, and that definitely it will be the case of the Baltic Sea region and Maritime Spatial Plans as well. But yeah, to have the positive side on that, I think the spatial planning as such, it also can serve as a great help to mobilize the countries to react and also prepare for future developments and all the unknowns that we are facing today, and also set the path forward. And I think also it was mentioned in a previous discussion that successful long-term visions and plans, they always are associated also with the joint work with stakeholders and also main actors that play the key role in implementing those plans.
Thanks, Elina, very much. I'm thinking also on the national level in terms of adaptability. We've seen from Angela that for some of the plans, this was clearly specified. So how plans will be followed up, monitored, evaluated, and so on. And for some, this timeline for the revision and update has been specified, while some are taking a bit more flexible approach. Triin, I was thinking maybe from your perspective of planning nationally, how is this adaptation taken up in Estonia?
Yes, this is actually a very, very good question. And as I was preparing for this session, I really thought it hard, because in Estonia we have a binding plan, and we actually cannot change the plan just as we like. We can change the plan only through new process and adopting a new plan. But for sure, the future developments need some adaptability, and therefore we have actually intentionally determined in our plan guidelines and conditions to distinguish these two things, because the guidelines are the soft requirements which can be followed or not, but the conditions are the strict requirements you have to follow. So when you are looking about MSP or Estonian MSP guidelines, then they are these kind of like the way how to actually do some kind of processes, or what to keep in mind when in licensing process you are doing these solutions. And this actually gives us an adaptability, because if you look the guideline and you see that you cannot follow it, you have to justify the need why you cannot follow it. And through that, we actually have built in an adaptability. But well, all in all, actually, the binding plan has to have some kind of structure, and it is very hard to question how to keep the adaptability that future needs actually.
Indeed. Yeah. What are kind of the legit triggers for adapting it and for doing the changes while still maintaining the overall objectives and the purpose of the plan? Jacek, maybe from your side in Poland, how is this adaptability taken up, and what are kind of the legit triggers for possible changes?
Well, I would separate two issues. One is, possibility of changing the plan, as Triin said. This is possible in Polish case because we have a system that we can replace as big existing plans with very small but much faster plans, because you can do it if it's for small area very, very rapidly with a smaller number of participants. And of course, this gives you adaptability, but it's also a risk for making a chaos in the planning system. But I would like rather to focus about the research perspective about what is happening, because, Ivana, when I'm teaching MSP, so when I looked on my slides, about the future of MSP, because this is a theme for today's discussion, there was renewable energy, automatic shipping, autonomous shipping, new big ports going into the sea, things like that. And then the main research question was, how marine ecosystem can accommodate all this. This was the key issue for us, not to spoil. And then, if I am looking on the continuation, so then the next issue came in, this issue related to the culture, which was very popular even in the previous year. How to look on the people values towards the sea. What is the emotional attachment of the people? Because in our MSP process, we sometimes failed to attract the real people. People, they didn't feel that they can change the plan, that they have a real role, at least in some Baltic countries, this was the case. So this cultural part came in. But now I think that there will be a totally new research questions after 24th of February. So we'll start thinking about the issue which we cannot even now imagine. So for example, we will have a new structure of values on the EU level, on the national level, and now how to incorporate these new values, for example, security, which be much more important to our existing plans, which were done from the perspective of this, blue economy and environment. And now we must add a new element to the planning. And this is a challenge, both for research, because research was focused on environment, on this, cultural issues, but also for the decision makers, because if they make encroachment, so if they make fast changes, and science will be unable to support them, advising them, this can be a failure for MSP at the end, because MSP will be not coherent. And this is an issue which I think that we should have in mind when we are talking about the future of MSP. So there is a need for new research relating to resilience, to security, to many other issues, I would say.
Indeed, those are the complex topics, and yeah, new research and new quick research. So also looking for ways on how to do it in a quick and efficient way. All right, thanks very much, Jacek, for that. We have one slide, a question also to hear from the audience. It goes, what could be the key triggers for the adaptation of maritime spatial plans? So I invite everyone to, again, go to slido.com. The hashtag is Capacity4MSP. And please put your perspective in there. So what could be the key triggers for the adaptation of marine spatial plans from your perspective? In the meantime, Elina, there is one Q&A question actually to you. I don't see it anymore, but it was relating to the conflicts between differing uses. So is this considered in the vision, and how? So had it looked into the conflicts and basically conflicts or synergies between differing uses?
Yeah, well, I should say that like cooperation as such is the overarching, I think, principle throughout the vision document, and also acknowledges the mutual interdependency. It means that everything is linked and everything depends on each other. And also this draft vision was prepared let's say in all times, but we still that those main principles and solutions, or let's say the statements at least, they are still valid and also can be adapted for this new situation. And I think to pick up some specifics from the draft vision, for sure, the functional coherence is one of the topics that the vision addresses. And as I mentioned, the coherence across different levels, across different type of borders, like administrative, physical, digital, I don't know, even mental probably. And also the other aspect, very crucial aspect, is this green, just, and digital transition. And I think I can only share what Jacek already said about this security aspect here, and also how we can, countries around the Baltic Sea, how they can increase the resilience if we talk about independent energy and secure energy and other issues as well. And of course, about that, always this good environmental status of marine ecosystems, that the work that has been being done within HELCOM and must, of course, be continued in the future. Yeah.
Thank you.
If I can continue, Ivana, because
sure.
I think that this trigger will be, I mean, in changes of the plan, maybe not adaptation, because adaptation is related, but this will be about external shocks, because we are not aware what type of external shocks we will have out of what is happening now. Of course, we are talking about the climate change. So, for example, Nico is now trying to build this coastal defense in their plans because, you know, Netherlands can be flooded. But I will give you a very simple example. So now Ukraine is the biggest exporter of corn and of seed oil. And now it is gone. So now we have a huge problem of replacing it, and there will be a problem of nutrition. So I can imagine that now in our MSP, there will be immediate claim, give us a food from the sea, because we are, yeah. So, you know, I'm not talking now about the war. I'm talking now about the consequences which we can even not imagine how they influence our MSP.
Good point. Thank you. Thank you, Jacek. There are some questions also coming through the Q&A. One of these relates to the mission ocean. So how do you see MSP to support the mission ocean? Do you have any comments on this, maybe? In the meantime, we can perhaps see the latest poll coming through. So this one, what could be the key triggers for the adaptation of marine spatial plans? And here we have new technologies, ecosystem response. Okay, lots of different things. EU Green Deal, definitely the 24th of February. All right, but new technologies is definitely something coming up strong. All right. The next thing I would like us to touch upon relates to this future-proof MSP. Nico, you have touched upon it in your presentation. You have also mentioned the importance of addressing the climate change. So what does this future-proof MSP means in the context of EU MSP project, and perhaps this topic of climate change, how would that be taken up?
Okay. Yes, thank you, Ivana. And this might sound a little strange, but because of the 24th, I've been changing my mind about what this means for the world, and Jacek has been telling it some things about it, and I must say I totally agree. And Jacek, we talked, I think, 3 days ago, and you were talking about all the consequences, and of course corn, seed oil, stuff like that, all indirect consequences, but they are consequences. And so I first want to say, I think in this context, climate change is a relatively slow working change, where we have the time, so to speak, to adapt, think of new ways how to cope with it. But I want to stress that I do agree that the most important thing for MSP is adaptability. That's one. And adaptability to shocks. And that's why I filled in politics, because they eventually give the real shocks, the short-term shocks that we have to react upon. And if you look at MSP making it future-proof in relation to climate change, then we need to think about a lot of things. And to be honest, because of the 24th, I really don't know where it will go to, because I was thinking, okay, maybe this means we have to stop using gas, natural gas, and we should start building wind farms even faster than we've been doing. But Jacek told me, yes, but what about security and the effects on wind farms and electricity generation at sea, which can be, I don't know, damaged, sabotaged quite easily. So, to be honest, how the political consequence and the shocks we all endure, also in our plans, will have an effect on climate change and the message we want to take, it's really unsure, to be honest. But climate change, of course, the wind farms, right now, that is our goal, to have as much renewable energy as possible. So that will have a one-on-one effect on our MSPs, of course. You can also think about hydrogen generation also at sea, because we have a lot of relatively cheap electricity production over there. But you can also think about what the effects of temperature change will be. What will be the changes if you look at fish migration and the fish stocks we have? They go to the north. There will be new species coming in that will have an effect on fisheries and where we can fish and what we can fish. But also acidification. That's also an indirect effect of climate change. What will be the effects on shellfish farming, for example? Is it still possible? We know that acidification on land has quite dramatic effects on nature if we are not careful. But same goes for the restoration of oyster reefs. 1/3 of the North Sea used to be one big oyster reef. That's all gone. And if you want to restore it, how does this play out if you look at the acidification of the seas? So climate change was already difficult to act upon, mitigate it, and it will be even more difficult if you look at the current political situation. So I hope you can do something with this answer, Ivana.
Thank you, Nico. Indeed, so really having MSP adaptable, so future-proof MSP needs to be adaptable or even responsive, so even quickly responsive, because we see that the priorities can shift quickly, and then also assessing MSP against other policies and doing that in kind of an efficient manner. All right, very good. I have one more question for Slido, and it's actually for our audience. So from your perspectives, what does future-proof MSP mean to you? So we have heard now a couple of things, and definitely two, the most eminent ones are the climate change, as well as the national security and defense. And as I see, it's coming up right away. So what other things from your perspectives make MSP future-proof?
May I add, I totally
Elina,
agree.
sure.
Yeah, I agree what Nico says about this adaptive to short-term shocks. It's indeed probably will be the main focus. And I assume that some compromises probably will be made there. But what to add on top of that, I think what always keeps your head above the water in this regard, what kind of challenges or circumstances or turbulences are happening around, it's the principles, the values, and also this long-term sight in the future that keeps, some light in like at the end of the tunnel. And that would be, from my side, this overarching set for future proofability.
Thank you, Lina, very much.
Could I also add?
Definitely, Triin.
Yeah, I wanted to just pinpoint that I totally also agree the previous speakers, but I wanted to pinpoint out that through MSP we can actually guide which way these different developments and different perspectives are going, and but there are a lot of different nuances actually outside planning that we cannot affect, and therefore I think this adaptability is the keyword, and the keyword is also the guiding way to think, because if we forget that MSP is a way forward and guiding document, how can we go forward then, and we are adapting all the time with different problems that are arising, then we actually, I think we are making a lot more chaos in the end.
If I can continue, Ivana, from my perspective, research perspective, the future of Europe is in solidarity. As long we have solidarity, that is fundament for our future. So translating this into MSP, I would say what is important. In our MSP in the long run, it's important to cooperate. So such project like eMSP, they make sense, like our fora in the Baltic Sea. We should cooperate. We should know each other. We should not be, empty faces. But the second issue is that we should pay attention to the social aspects of MSP. Who is benefiting, who is taking burdens, whether those, key benefits are coming only to the biggest enterprises. And we know that those biggest enterprises, sometimes they don't care about values of genuine people and things like that. So I think the social aspect, because if I'm looking on the nature of problems we have, all those problems are either symbolic or they are related to the social sphere, not to the economy, not to the ecology. So we should acknowledge this importance of social part.
Thank you, Jacek. Excellent. I think we have really a final word from each one of you on this topic of really future MSP. There is also a question on slide on how will future MSPs be different from current plans, and what improvements can we expect there? And very, very good ideas coming up here indeed. All right, with this, I would like to wrap up actually this event and thank you, so all four of you, for especially for your final remarks, which are very good and very important for the future outlook, which I hope can still stay positive. I would also like very much to thank all other speakers and panelists we had today. With this, I would like to wrap up just with a couple short highlights from my side. So we have during this event heard that the importance of continuous dialogue is huge. So we need to continue it, be it as in the form of the eMSP community of practice, planners forum, MSP, VASAB, Helcom VASAB working group. And we see also that there is a lot of motivation to continue MSP dialogue, albeit the fact that MSPs are now published. And some of the topics that are crucial going forward are definitely climate, as we heard, security as well, social justice, energy security, food security, but also having this, again, cross-sectoral joint and transparent approach. We know the priorities, it's eminent now that priorities are changing and they can change quite quickly. So this adaptability really and kind of responsiveness of MSP is also crucial in order to respond also to the changing priorities, other policies, and so on. The question of social justice is also coming up more and more, and it will be even more important in the future as well. And finally, as a final word from my side, I would like to again encourage everyone to keep the positive outlook, to keep being motivated in terms of the MSP, and to continue following both the final results from the Capacity of MSP project that will now roll out a more intensive communication campaign in order for everyone to actually see and read these final outputs of the project, and of course to follow up the continuous dialogues, be it as part of the eMSP project, planners forums, and so on. This being said, thank you very much everyone for joining the event. So thank you for watching and see you next time.